if the White House president and his team had to do it all over again, would you have gassed and pummeled protesters to clear the park so the president could have a photo op?
So let me first address no tear gas was used and no rubber bullets were
Agents
used.
were used.
So again, no tear gas was used, no rubber bullets were used.
Why are you making that distinction?
let me-
Chemical agents were used.
let
We
me
talked to
back
an
up and-
Episcopal priest who said she was gassed. Others say they were tear gassed in that area.
Well, no one was tear gas. Let me make that clear. That's been confirmed by DOD and by
chemical
Park
agents were
Services as
used.
well. So let me go back and address what happened because there's been a lot of misreporting. First, I would note that these protests that were going on, in the morning, AG Barr had determined that we needed to expand the perimeter by 1 block on each side. He was surprised, AG Barr, when he arrived at the White House to see that that perimeter had not been moved. So he said that we needed to get going with moving that perimeter. He told the officers that out there. That was late afternoon. So that decision was made in the morning, first of all. The protesters were told 3 times over loudspeaker that they needed to move. And what happened was it grew increasingly unruly. There were projectiles being thrown at officers. Frozen water bottles were being thrown at officers. Various other projectiles. And the officers had no other choice than in that moment to act and make sure that they were safe and that the perimeter was pushed back because, as we all know, a church was burning in that very area the night before. So the appropriate action was taken. It was burning the night before, which enforced the decision to move the perimeter on each side by a block, so that church would no longer be in harm's way by the rioters. But it's absolutely uncalled for to throw bricks, absolutely uncalled for to throw water bottles that are frozen at police officers.
Don't you agree, Kayleigh, that the vast majority of those protesters were doing so peacefully, and that many of them did not hear those warnings and were simply just pushed out of the way, just forced out, pummeled out of the way by their fellow Americans, police officers? You sent in members of the military to deal with this. I mean, what do you say to Americans who look at what happened on Monday and find that to be appalling?
Well, let me note the National Guard was utilized across Washington, D.C. The military was not. There is a distinction, and I would say that it is uncalled for to throw bricks at officers, uncalled for to throw frozen water bottles at officers. And they also had received intelligence that there were calls for violence against police officers, and they found caches of glass bottles, baseball bats, and metal poles hidden along the streets. When an officer is at risk, they have the right to defend themselves. They did so peaceably. There were no fatalities, no severe injuries.
You do it again.
To protect the lives of officers, they have a right to defend and to protect themselves.
And the White House,
Next question. I think Sarah used to always joke about 2 Question Tuesday. I think sometimes I get 4 or 5 Question Wednesday.
I just want to make sure that people who have a problem with what they saw Monday have a chance to have that addressed. And, I mean, what do you say to Americans who are just outraged by what they saw? And for the president to go and have a photo op in front of a church.
What I would say is this: officers have a right to defend themselves. And I've watched a lot of your coverage. I've watched a lot of the nation's coverage, and let's go through some of the things that happen when officers don't defend and protect themselves. In St. Louis, 4 police officers were shot. In Las Vegas, an officer was shot in the head and is on life support. In New York, a cop was beat up by people. In Providence, 4 to 5 police officers and state troopers were injured. And in Ashbury Park, New Jersey, a police officer was injured. Police officers are out on the front lines. They're defending and protecting you as you come into this building each and every day, Jim. We owe them honor. We owe them respect. And when they are under attack, they have the ability to defend themselves.